What if I told you that a book revealed more than 14 centuries ago could still hit you like a lightning bolt in the modern world? That it could shake the way you see yourself, your choices, your relationships, even your understanding of the universe? That's exactly what happened when I first picked up the Quran. I wasn't expecting it to feel so alive, so immediate, so incredibly relevant. I thought I'd be reading old stories, moral lessons tucked away in a dusty past. But the moment I started, it felt like the words were reaching through time, speaking directly to me, asking the questions I hadn't even voiced out loud, challenging me to confront things I'd been avoiding. Over the next 20 minutes, I want to take you inside that experience. The moments that shook me, opened my mind, and made me see life, morality, and existence in a way I never imagined possible. I've always been someone who questions everything, curious about life, the universe, and why we do what we do. I'm not satisfied with surface-level answers. I want to dig deeper, understand the patterns, and challenge my own assumptions. That's why when I kept hearing about the Quran from guests on my show, from people who seemed genuinely transformed by it, I felt a pull. I thought maybe there's something here worth exploring. But let's be honest, I wasn't expecting much. I assumed it would be like any other ancient text, full of moral stories and outdated ideas that belonged in the past. I figured it would be interesting historically, sure, but relevant? Not really. I thought it wouldn't connect with me, a modern thinker living in the chaos of today's world. Then I started reading, and immediately I realized how wrong I had been. It wasn't just a book, it was a conversation, a dialogue that challenged me, provoked me, and made me question the way I live. The more I read, the more I noticed how it wasn't afraid to confront the big topics: life, death, purpose, justice, morality. And it wasn't preaching in a way that felt distant or irrelevant. Instead, it hit directly at the core of human experience. I started seeing patterns, connections, and insights that made me stop in my tracks. This wasn't just a religious text, it was a manual for thinking, living, and understanding existence. And as I turned each page, I realized I was embarking on a journey that would push me beyond curiosity, beyond skepticism, into a space where I had to confront the deepest truths about myself and the world around me. The first thing that hit me when I opened the Quran was its structure. It doesn't read like any book I've ever come across before. There's a rhythm to it, a flow that grabs your attention and holds it. Even in translation, you can feel the weight of the words, the way they're carefully chosen, each one carrying layers of meaning. It's almost hypnotic. The cadence draws you in, demanding that you pay attention, that you reflect. There's a power in it that goes beyond storytelling. It feels like the words themselves are alive, resonating on a level that touches something deep inside you. And then I started noticing the themes. Man, the themes are mind-blowing. It talks about life in ways I had never considered. Not just the day-to-day stuff, but the big questions. Why we're here, what our purpose is, what happens after we die. And it doesn't shy away from the hard stuff either. It confronts morality, human flaws, justice, responsibility. It doesn't sugarcoat reality or give easy answers. Instead, it forces you to face the truth of your own existence. You start realizing how interconnected everything is, your choices, your actions, your relationships, and how they ripple out into the world. What really got me was how relevant it felt, even though it was revealed over 1,400 years ago. I kept thinking, how is this possible? The observations about human nature, the warnings about arrogance, greed, and injustice, it all felt like it was written for today, for the modern world, not just some distant past. And yet there's also this timelessness to it. It's not about trends, about culture, about politics. It's about principles, about truths that endure no matter what century you live in. As I kept reading, I started to appreciate the discipline behind the text, the way it guides, challenges, and inspires all at once. Every verse felt intentional, like it was crafted to make you stop, think, and reflect on your life. I found myself underlining passages in my mind, remembering lines that hit hard, that demanded a response from me. And the more I engaged, the more I realized this isn't just a book to read, it's a book to experience. It's a mirror, a teacher, and a challenge all rolled into one. And that's when I knew this journey was going to change the way I see everything. One of the first things that really shook me was how the Quran describes God. It's not the distant, unapproachable, judgmental figure that I think a lot of people imagine when they hear the word God. This isn't a deity sitting far away, keeping score and waiting to punish you. No, it's a presence that's intimate, personal, and profoundly aware of your life, your struggles, your intentions. It's a force that's both powerful and gentle, commanding respect, but offering mercy at every turn. the Quran constantly emphasizes attributes like mercy, compassion, and justice. That combination hit me hard because it paints a picture of a God who is not only supremely capable, but also supremely understanding. It's like having a teacher, a guide, and a parent all in one. Someone who holds you accountable, yes, but does so with care, never ignoring your effort or your potential. It made me stop and really think, how often do we imagine God as being purely punitive when the message here is overwhelmingly about guidance, correction, and encouragement to become better? What fascinated me even more was the depth of this perspective. It doesn't just tell you God is merciful, it shows it in a way that's practical and relatable. The text illustrates the balance between accountability and forgiveness, between consequence and hope. You start to see that the universe, morality, and human behavior aren't chaotic. They're part of a system, a framework designed to help you grow. And that perspective changes everything about how you view life. I realized that this way of thinking about God forced me to rethink my own understanding of spirituality. For me, it was never about rituals or ceremonies alone. It's about connection, reflection, and purpose. And the Quran presents God in a way that makes spirituality feel alive, immediate, and actionable. It's not abstract philosophy. It's an invitation to engage deeply with life, with yourself, and with the principles that guide your behavior. The idea that there's a force so immense, yet so intimately aware of your choices, your fears, and your potential, it's humbling. It made me question how I approach my own life, how I interact with people, and how I measure right and wrong. And that's what struck me most. The Quran didn't just change my perception of God, it shifted the way I see myself, my responsibilities, and the way I want to live my life in relation to something bigger than me. One of the things that really grabbed me as I kept reading the Quran was its approach to morality and ethics. I've read a lot of books, listened to countless lectures, talked to philosophers and scientists, but the moral framework in this text, it's something else. It's universal. It doesn't matter where you come from, what culture you belong to, or whether you call yourself religious or not. The principles are clear, timeless, and fundamentally human. Justice, honesty, compassion, respect for others, helping those in need. These aren't just rules for believers. They're rules for anyone who wants to live a meaningful, responsible life. What struck me was the emphasis on accountability. The Quran doesn't just tell you to be good. It explains why goodness matters, how your actions ripple out into the world, and how you're responsible not only for what you do, but also for your intentions. It makes you think twice about choices that might seem small or insignificant. Every decision has weight, every word has impact, and that awareness, man, it's powerful. It's not guilt-tripping or fear-mongering. It's a wake-up call to live consciously, to recognize that your life and actions are part of a bigger system of cause and effect. Charity, for example, isn't just about giving money. It's about fostering empathy, humility, and community. Honesty isn't just a social expectation. It's about integrity and aligning your inner world with your outward actions. Justice isn't a political concept alone. It's a moral imperative that shapes the way you treat everyone, from friends to strangers to even those you might see as adversaries. The text lays out a code of ethics that doesn't feel prescriptive or rigid. It feels like guidance for becoming a better human being in a way that resonates with anyone open to reflection. And here's the thing, these moral principles align with a lot of what I've believed in throughout my life. Respect, fairness, self-discipline, accountability, these ideas aren't new to me, but seeing them presented in such a structured, deliberate, and timeless way was eye-opening. It made me realize that morality isn't just personal preference or social convention. It can be a coherent system, one that teaches you to navigate life with awareness, purpose, and integrity. The universality of it is what hits hardest. It doesn't matter who you are or where you're from. These lessons speak to human nature itself, to our potential, our flaws, and our responsibilities. Reading this, I couldn't help but feel challenged and inspired to live with more intention, to reflect more deeply on the impact of my actions, and to consider how I can contribute to a world that values justice, honesty, and compassion above all else. As I kept reading, one of the things that completely blew my mind was the way the Quran talks about the natural world. I mean, I've spent my life exploring science, talking to experts in biology, physics, astronomy, you name it, but here was a text over 1,400 years old describing phenomena in ways that only modern science has started to confirm. It's not vague philosophical speculation. It's detailed, precise observations about the universe, the earth, human development, and the balance of life itself. For example, there are passages describing the stages of human development in the womb. I thought, wait a minute, how could anyone have known this back then without microscopes, without modern medicine? And it doesn't stop there. The Quran mentions the expansion of the universe, the cycle of water, the role of mountains in stabilizing the earth, even hints about the oceans and seas that science only verified centuries later. Reading this, I couldn't help but ask myself, how is that possible? How could such accurate observations exist at a time when people believed the earth was flat, the stars were fixed, and life was a simple, linear process? And it's not just isolated facts. It's the consistency, the precision, the way these statements align with what we now know about physics, biology, and astronomy. It's as if the text is operating on a different timeline, giving humanity a peek at knowledge far ahead of its era. That realization hits you in a way that's hard to shake. You start questioning everything you thought you knew about history, knowledge, and human capability. It also made me think about the mindset behind the text. The Quran doesn't just present these facts like a science textbook. It encourages observation, reflection, and inquiry. It's asking you to look, to see, to question. It's not blind faith. It's an invitation to explore the world, to discover, to understand. And when you see how centuries later scientists are confirming these observations, it's not just fascinating, it's humbling. This intersection of science and spirituality reshaped my perspective. It's one thing to read about morality and purpose, but seeing a text anticipate discoveries that would take generations to confirm, it forces you to acknowledge that there's something remarkable at play. Something beyond human invention. It doesn't give you all the answers, but it asks the right questions, and that's what drives curiosity, exploration, and ultimately understanding. By the time I finished reflecting on these scientific references, I realized the Quran isn't just a spiritual guide. It's a text that bridges faith and reason, past and present, human knowledge, and something far greater. And that idea, man, it stays with you long after you put the book down. What struck me most as I kept reading was how personal the Quran feels. This isn't a book that just lays out rules or abstract ideas. It speaks to you in a way that challenges your mind and your heart at the same time. You start seeing your own life reflected in its words. Your fears, your doubts, your excuses, they all get called out. And that's uncomfortable, but in the best way possible. It forces you to confront who you really are, not who you pretend to be. I noticed myself thinking differently about everyday choices. The way I treat people, the way I react under pressure, even how I spend my time, all of it started to feel like it mattered on a much deeper level. And it's not just about doing what's right in a superficial sense. It's about building discipline, patience, and awareness. The Quran talks about intentional living, about aligning your actions with purpose and integrity. And that's a lesson I hadn't seen in any other book in the same way. What's crazy is how it reshapes your understanding of responsibility. It doesn't just tell you to be good, it shows you why it matters, how every choice ripples outward, affecting not just you, but the people around you, the society you live in, and even the world at large. I started realizing that personal growth isn't just about self-improvement in isolation. It's about tuning yourself to a higher standard of living, one that's conscious, deliberate, and morally grounded. The Quran also challenges you to reflect on your own mind and emotions. It encourages patience in the face of adversity, gratitude when life is good, and humility when you succeed. It asks you to question yourself constantly. Are you living intentionally? Are you making the most of the life you've been given? Those questions aren't easy to answer, but that's the point. It pushes you toward accountability, toward self-mastery. And here's the thing, this isn't some temporary motivation that fades in a few days. The effect lingers. You start noticing patterns in your behavior you hadn't seen before. You start questioning old habits, old assumptions, old beliefs. You realize growth isn't about perfection, it's about persistence, awareness, and aligning yourself with truth as you understand it. By the end of this reflection, I could feel a shift inside me. It wasn't sudden, but it was undeniable. The Quran wasn't just giving me knowledge, it was giving me a roadmap for personal transformation. And that, man, is the kind of insight that sticks with you, shaping not just how you think, but how you live. It's profound, it's challenging, and it's completely life-altering if you let it in. I won't lie, I came into this reading the Quran with a lot of skepticism. I've spent my life questioning everything, challenging conventional wisdom, and not taking anyone's word at face value. So naturally, I assumed this would be just another text full of outdated ideas and moralizing. But as I read, I started noticing something strange. My own biases were standing in the way of really seeing what was in front of me. The Quran doesn't demand blind obedience. It doesn't say, just accept this because it's written. Instead, it constantly challenges you to think, to observe, to reflect. Every passage seemed to be asking me, do you really understand this? Have you thought deeply about it? Are you applying it to your own life? And that was uncomfortable because I realized I had been skimming life the same way, taking shortcuts, looking for quick answers, avoiding hard questions. What really got me was how it encourages inquiry. It tells you to look at the universe, at yourself, at society, and ask, why is this the way it is? It's like it's saying, don't just accept the surface, dig deeper. And the more I dug, the more I saw the layers of meaning, the subtle logic, the universal principles woven throughout the text. Confronting my skepticism wasn't about surrendering. It was about acknowledging that I didn't know everything. I had to be honest with myself, admit where I'd been wrong, and be open to discovering truths that challenged everything I thought I believed. And honestly, that's a rare kind of teaching. It doesn't try to force you, it just gives you the tools to confront your own mind, your own assumptions, and come to understanding on your own terms. By facing my doubts head on, I realized that true insight doesn't come from blind acceptance. It comes from questioning, exploring, and being willing to see beyond your own biases. That shift alone was revolutionary for me. So, what do I take away from all this? The Quran isn't just a book sitting on a shelf or a collection of old stories. It's a living guide, a framework for thinking, acting, and reflecting. It holds up a mirror to your life, forcing you to confront questions you might normally avoid. Who am I? What really matters? How should I live? And it doesn't hand you easy answers. Instead, it challenges you to find them, to explore, to engage with the world and yourself in a deeper way. I've realized that reading the Quran isn't about reaching some final destination where you have it all figured out. It's about being on a journey, a continuous process of self-reflection, growth, and learning. Every time I read, I uncover something new, something that makes me pause, rethink, or see things from a different angle. It's not just about knowledge. It's about awareness, mindfulness, and living consciously. And here's the thing. This journey is personal. It doesn't matter where you start or what your background is. The Quran speaks in a way that challenges, inspires, and provokes thought, no matter who you are. It has this uncanny ability to meet you where you are, to make you see yourself more clearly, and to push you toward becoming a better version of yourself. I'm not claiming to have all the answers now, I'm far from it. But what I've learned is that the path itself, the questioning, the reflection, the striving, is what shapes you. That's what makes life meaningful. And as I continue this journey, I know one thing for sure. The Quran isn't just a book I read, it's a guide I live with. And it will keep guiding me as long as I'm willing to listen and grow.